Essentialism by Greg McKeown. This summary is brought to you by Hook My Book. Essentialism is the philosophy that states that only the truly important things should be taken on. This philosophy is based on the idea that by focusing on the essentials, you can achieve more in less time. Essentialism is a way of living that focuses on what is important and eliminates the things that are not necessary. It allows you to have a clear path and to do things easily. You can do anything but not everything. Only once you permit yourself to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everyone, can you make your highest contribution towards the things that really matter. Essentialism is a way of thinking that focuses on the most important things. For example, Dieter Rams was a lead designer at Braun for many years, and he believes that almost everything is noise. He tries to filter through that noise until he finds the essence, which may be something small but better. This way of thinking is the opposite of the conventional way of thinking. The way of the essentialist is the relentless pursuit of less but better. It rejects the idea that we can fit everything in, and instead requires us to make tough decisions and live by design. The way of the essentialist is a path to success and meaning, but it can be hard to follow. Non-essentialism is a way of living that focuses on the non-essential things in life. The way of the essentialist is more efficient and satisfying because it allows for more progress in the things that matter most. The way of the non-essentialist is more reactive and difficult because it puts more effort into many different activities. Too many choices. We have too many choices, and we can't handle the pressure of making good choices. We've lost our ability to filter what is important and what isn't, and we're also stressed because of all the social pressure to do things and have things. The solution is to intentionally eliminate the non-essentials and focus on what is essential. As Peter Drucker said, in a few hundred years, when the history of our time will be written from a long-term perspective, it is likely that the most important event historians will see is not technology, not the internet, not e-commerce. It is an unprecedented change in the human condition. For the first time, literally, substantial and rapidly growing numbers of people have choices. For the first time, they will have to manage themselves. And society is totally unprepared for it. We can have it all is a myth. The idea that we can have it all and do it all is a myth. It is promoted in advertising, and is embedded in job descriptions and university applications. It stresses people out and causes them to make trade-offs that they would never make on purpose. The word priority came into the English language in the 1400s, and originally meant the very first or prior thing. It stayed singular for the next 500 years, until we pluralized it and started talking about priorities. Illogically, we reasoned that by changing the word we could bend reality. But when we try to have it all and have it all, we find ourselves making trade-offs at the margins that we would never make on purpose. Essentialism is the philosophy that says it is important to focus on the essentials, or the things that truly matter, in your life. This includes things like making the highest possible contribution towards your goals, eliminating the non-essential stuff from your life, and having a system for handling the closet of your life. Choose. The invincible power of choice. The author is discussing how people can forget their ability to choose, which comes from a study by Seligman and Meyer on German Shepherds. The study found that dogs that had been able to stop the electric shock or had not been shocked at all in the earlier part of the experiment quickly learned to step over the divider to the side without shocks, but the dogs that had been powerless in the last part of the experiment did not. These dogs didn't adapt or adjust. They did nothing to try to avoid getting shocked. When people believe that their efforts at work don't matter, they tend to respond in one of two ways. Sometimes they check out and stop trying, like the mathematically challenged child. The other response is less obvious at first. They do the opposite. They become hyperactive. They accept every opportunity presented. They throw themselves into every assignment. They tackle every challenge with gusto. They try to do it all. When we forget our ability to choose, we learn to be helpless. Drip by drip we allow our power to be taken away until we end up becoming a function of other people's choices, or even a function of our own past choices. In turn, we surrender our power to choose. That is the path of the non-essentialist. The essentialist doesn't just recognize the power of choice, he celebrates it. The essentialist knows that when we surrender our right to choose, we give others not just the power but also the explicit permission to choose for us. Discern the unimportance of practically everything. The Pareto Principle is the idea that 20% of your efforts produce 80% of the results. The law of the vital few is the idea that you can massively improve the quality of a product by resolving a tiny fraction of the problems. The power law is the idea that certain efforts produce exponentially more results than others. The overwhelming reality is that we live in a world where almost everything is worthless and very few things are exceptionally valuable. As John Maxwell has written, you cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. Essentialists think that almost everything is essential, and they view opportunities as basically equal. They think that almost everything is non-essential, and they distinguish the vital few from the trivial many. Essentialists can keep many capable people from getting to the next level of contribution because they can't let go of the belief that everything is important. But an essentialist has learned to tell the difference between what is truly important and everything else. To practice this essentialist skill, essentialists can start at a simple level, and once it becomes second nature for everyday decisions, they can begin to apply it to bigger and broader areas of their personal and professional lives. Mastering it fully will require a massive shift in thinking, but it can be done. Trade OFF. Which problem do I want? A person who is always trying to fit more things into their schedule usually ends up being late, not completing their projects on time, and not attending their cousin's birthday party. They often ignore the reality of trade-offs, which means they often end up sacrificing important things. For example, Johnson & Johnson, a company that understood the importance of trade-offs, bounced back after their cyanide scandal by quickly recalling all Tylenol products. Essentialists try to make the best choices for themselves, and they don't let things get too complicated. They think about what they want and what can be done to get it. They don't let anything get in their way and they don't wait around for things to happen. Trade-offs are not something to be ignored or decried. They are something to be embraced and made deliberately, strategically, and thoughtfully. Escape. The perks of being unavailable. Frank O'Brien founded Conversations, a marketing services company, in New York City. He instituted a radical practice of holding monthly meetings where employees are free to talk and think without interruption. The purpose of the meetings is to get employees away from the distractions of their work and to focus on what is essential. O'Brien believes that if employees are constantly on call, they cannot focus on what is important. By providing space for employees to escape and think, O'Brien believes they will be able to figure out what is essential and grow their business. Some executives are so busy with their work that they can't focus on anything else, so they try to create a distraction-free space by having their executive assistant pull all of the internet cables on their computers. But even then, they can't stop thinking. Sir Isaac Newton and Richard S. Westphal, two famous thinkers, used a different strategy. They blocked off a certain number of hours each day to think and process information. Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn, schedules 2 hours a day to clear his head and process information. For Jeff, creating space is more than a practice. It is part of a broader philosophy. He has seen the effects of the undisciplined pursuit of more on organizations and in the lives of executives. So for him, it's not a slogan or a buzz phrase. It is a philosophy. Play. Embrace the wisdom of your inner child. Studies have shown that play is very important for the development of cognitive skills, and it may even help a species survive in the wild. Play also broadens our options, makes us more creative, and reduces stress. Some companies are waking up to the importance of play, and are promoting it through their physical environments, desk toys, and action figures. The 90% rule. Essentialists use selection criteria to decide what to do, and they do this to avoid getting bogged down in indecision or feeling overwhelmed by too many options. They use this same selection criterion to decide what is important to them in their professional and personal lives. While evaluating an option, think about the single most important criterion for that decision, and then simply give the option a score between 0 and 100. If you rate it any lower than 90%, then automatically change the rating to 0 and simply reject it. This way you avoid getting caught up in indecision, or worse, getting stuck in the 60s or 70s. If it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no. The fear of missing out goes into full effect. How can we say no? The offer is right here for the taking. We might never have gone after it, but now it is so easy to get it that we consider it. But if we just say yes because it is an easy reward, we run the risk of having to later say no to a more meaningful one. Clarify. One decision that makes 1,000. To achieve clarity of purpose in a team, it is important to have a clear mission and goals. Without a mission, teams can become leaderless and focused on winning the attention of the manager. To achieve clarity of purpose in an individual, it is important to have a clear sense of what you want out of your career, your values, and your passions. When teams are really clear about their purpose and their individual roles, on the other hand, it is amazing what happens to team dynamics. Formal momentum accelerates, adding up to a higher cumulative contribution of the team as a whole. Essential intent is a strategic choice that settles 1,000 later decisions by mapping a course for the next 5, 10, or even 20 years of one's life. This is a much more inspiring and concrete goal than a vague, general vision or mission statement. An essential intent is also easily measured and inspires people because it is both meaningful and memorable. When it comes to achieving clarity of purpose, inspiration does matter. When we think of inspiration, we often think of lofty rhetoric. But while rhetoric can certainly inspire, we need to remember that concrete objectives have the power to elevate and inspire as well. A powerful essential intent inspires people partially because it is concrete enough to answer the question, how will we know when we have succeeded? However, creating an essential intent is hard. It takes courage, insight, and foresight to see which activities and efforts will add up to your single highest point of contribution. It takes asking tough questions, making real trade-offs, and exercising serious discipline to cut out the competing priorities that distract us from our true intention. Yet it is worth the effort because only with real clarity of purpose can people, teams, and organizations fully mobilize and achieve something truly excellent. Dare. The power of a graceful no. Essentialists understand that saying no often requires trading popularity for respect. Non-essentialists often say yes to requests out of social awkwardness and pressure, but essentialists know that after the rush comes a pang of regret. They know they will soon feel bullied and resentful, both at the other person and at themselves. Eventually, they will wake up to the unpleasant reality that something more important must now be sacrificed to accommodate this new commitment. Essentialists say no occasionally, but it's a regular part of their repertoire. To say no with grace, you have a variety of responses at your disposal, including the awkward pause, the soft no, or the no but. Email is a good way to start practicing saying no but. When someone asks you to do something, you can say, "Let me check my calendar and get back to you." Another way to say no is to say, "I can't do it, but X might be interested." Uncommit. Win big by cutting your losses. The Concorde was a spectacularly successful passenger plane, but it was also a financially unsuccessful project for over 4 decades. The French and British governments continued to invest in it because of a psychological phenomenon called sunk cost bias. This bias causes us to continue to invest in something that is a losing proposition even though it is already expensive and we have already incurred a cost that cannot be recouped. The author suggests that before committing, you ask yourself if it is an essential commitment. If it is not, you should apologize and find a way to get out of the commitment. People often make commitments they regret by trying to force a fit when something is not a good fit. Limit. The freedom of setting boundaries. Jin Young is an employee at a technology company in Korea who is planning her wedding and preparing for a board meeting at the same time. Her manager, Hyori, asks her to create the script and all the slides for their joint presentation at the board meeting, and Jin Young put in several 15-hour days and completed the work quickly so she could devote the days leading up to the board meeting to planning her wedding. However, when Jin Young receives an urgent request from her manager asking her to complete an additional project before the board meeting, she decides not to do it and tells her manager no. Her manager is left to complete the task on her own, and after laboring over the task for days, she sees all sorts of flaws in the way she's been doing things and realizes that she needs to pull in the reins and establish boundaries with each member of the team. This allows her to see the error of her ways and opens up a space for change. Buffer and subtract. The author describes how the human brain underestimates how long tasks will take, particularly when we have done them before. This can lead to us being chronically late, stressed, and guilt-ridden. To protect ourselves, we can add a 50% buffer to our estimates. Essentialists focus on removing obstacles instead of doing more. Obstacles can be anything that is slowing down the desired outcome. They use a question to identify the obstacle and then remove the obstacle. Finally, essentialism is the belief that what is important now is more important than anything else. When faced with a lot of things to do, you should stop and focus on what is important right now. You can do this by writing down what is important and then eliminating anything that isn't important. You should permit yourself to stop trying to do it all, stop saying yes to everyone, and make your highest contribution towards the things that really matter. End of the summary. Thanks for listening.